you don't want some bureaucrat telling me how to practice medicine, because I'm going to tell you what happens when they are in charge, because we already have examples. So we're going to enter your data, and this didn't start with President Obama. This started with President George Bush. Okay, in April of 2004, we had the National Technology Coordinator appointed to ensure that appropriate information to guide medical decisions at the time and place of care. And this is going to reduce healthcare costs resulting from inefficiency, medical errors, and inappropriate care. You know, the kind of inefficiency where I order a prostate screening test, or the kind of inefficiency where I offer you a surgery so that you can walk again. All right, those kinds of inefficiencies. The kind of inefficiency where I take the blood clot out of your brain when you're 75 so we can give you about a 20% chance to wake up and see your grandchildren again. Those kinds of inefficiencies. We're going to get rid of those inefficiencies. All right, August 2nd, 2006. Promote quality and efficiency. Delivery of healthcare through the use of health information technology with incentives. Here it is, incentives. The word's coming up now more and more in the conversation, in the lexicon. Pay for performance, P for P. We're going to give the doctor a financial bonus if they spend less money on you. And I'm going to show you how this works in a second. I don't call P for P, pay for performance. I call it penalties for practice, or punishment for physicians, because they're going to punish us financially and professionally if we dare to give you the medical care that you expect and deserve. And this is President Obama in his inauguration address, no less. In the first words he spoke as President of the United States, within 4 or 5 paragraphs, he was talking about how we're going to wield technology's wonders to raise healthcare's quality and lower its costs. This has been on his radar for a long time. And now this is the same government that can't keep their nuclear sites secret, who published all their nuclear sites on the internet. They want your electronic medical records. They want your data online. This is the same government in Georgia, when they contracted with WellCare for Medicaid, that accidentally exposed the records of 71,000 members of its health plan. Oops. Sorry. I hope your employer doesn't mind that phone call from your enemy telling him that you have a debilitating medical problem that would interfere with your job. Here's the man, Rahm Emanuel. I will never ever put a flattering picture up of this man. Yeah. You never want a serious crisis to go to waste, and what I mean by that, it's an opportunity to do things that you could not do before. You think you could not do before. And the corollary to that is, if there is no crisis, create a crisis, or pretend there's a crisis. And we're just today, for God's sakes, we saw Obama and Sarkozy on the stage. They were practically open-mouth kissing on the stage. I'm sorry. It was disgusting the way they were just totally enjoying each other's company. And these people have created a financial crisis. They're going to have a world financial authority for how money is spent. And they've created a crisis. They've created a crisis, and they're taking advantage of it now. That's another slide presentation. So what are some myths of American healthcare? Obama said this, I think, in a State of the Union, or one of his many speeches on this. He said that medical bankruptcies occur every seconds. Well, really? Every 30 seconds. Let's do the math on that. Well, that puts them at 1.05 million. Well, if you look at the year he was referring to, there were only actually 822,590 bankruptcies in that year in total. And yet he claims there were 1 million bankruptcies. And when you just take about 10 minutes to do a Google search on bankruptcies in medicine, you come across this UC Davis studies that said that less than 5% of bankruptcies are from medical causes. All right? So while there can be medical costs that contribute to bankruptcies, they're not the primary cause, and there's better ways to solve them. And by the way, Canadians go bankrupt too with medical expenses, and Medicare patients go bankrupt too, okay, even though they're covered. All right? Uninsured myth. 47 million Americans was frequently quoted. 9.7 million are non-citizens. 9.7 million. 8 million earn more than $50,000. 8 million earn more than $75,000. 16 million earn more than $50,000 a year. 14 million eligible for government programs. When you do the math, about 8 million people in America are chronically uninsured. 87% of Americans have health insurance now. And they're usually happy that they are covered, even though there are many areas for improvement. And yet we are now going to create a new government entitled plan, a program to solve a problem that does not really exist. Other myths. Americans get half of recommended care. I don't have time to debunk this. It's just wrong, okay? And for instance, here's some recommended care they didn't get. Whether or not we told them to quit smoking. Didn't tell them, you didn't get the recommended care. Whether we told them to quit drinking. Didn't tell them to quit drinking, they didn't get the recommended care. That's the kind of counting they do, for God's sakes. All right, American infant mortality rates are higher. Well, I'm sorry, we try to save our premature babies. We actually care if they might die, all right? And we count them, all right, when they do die. We actually count them. In Europe, they don't count. If you die within a certain amount of time after you're born, or below a certain birth weight, you don't count as a born infant. You don't count. So that's just a bunch of nonsense. Debunked myths of socialized medicine. Go see this great book by John Goodman, Lives at Risk. If you want this reference later, come and ask me. Lives at Risk, John Goodman blows socialized medicine out of the water. Truths of American healthcare. In my opinion, we still have the best medical care in the history of the world. We have now, but will not have if we don't act, the highest cancer survival in the world. We have the most advanced medical technology. Everyone gets care in the ER regardless of ability to pay. They show up, they get taken care of, end of story. Patients trust their doctors far more than Congress. I can't believe that a body that operates in a low teens approval rating for decades actually is able to control our lives. Pretty sad, isn't it? So, here's some areas for improvement. Health insurance is unaffordable. There is a maze of a healthcare system. There is too little time with doctors. It's harder and harder to find primary care doctors. I love nurses. I love nurse practitioners. They do a lot of great work, but many people may not realize they're not actually seeing a doctor. And they may not realize that the language actually sets it up so that nurse practitioners can take the place of doctors and actually be called primary care providers. They may not know that. All right, they may not know that you can go into what's called a medical home and that the primary care doctor in charge of the medical home can actually be a nurse practitioner. Now, nurse practitioners are great. They have a vital role to play, but in my opinion, they need to be supervised. They need to work under a physician, or you need to know. You need to know what you're getting, and they should live under the same rules and regulations the rest of us live in. All right? There is a difference between going to college for 4 years and medical school for 4 years and doing at least 3 years of residency with a grueling, rigorous schedule where you can get fired every day. There's a difference in the kind of health care provider that produces. It's a big difference. It's a person who has a different way of thinking about things. It's easy to follow certain things and computers and guidelines. It's hard to find the 1 to 2 to 5% of things that are different about a patient population. It's hard to find the one who comes in with a headache and the computer tells you that it's a sinus infection when it's really an aneurysm. It's hard. You don't learn that thing without enough training. Now, third-party payer domination, as I said, is a cause. Back in World War II, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and I encourage you to read the book New Deal or Raw Deal by Burton Folsom, New Deal or Raw Deal. And he blows apart all the New Deal propaganda and nonsense about how it's a complete sham. But when World War II came around, there was price fixing and wage controls. And the only way that they can attract workers in America was to provide them health benefits tax-free through their employer. That's when it started. That's when employment-based health insurance started. You cannot buy insurance outside of your work and get the same tax break that you could if you buy it inside your job. So if I work for Raytheon and I decide that I want to leave Raytheon, I can't get